Hey, Chris, I want to say thanks for joining us. This is super excited. What you probably don't know is that to some level, I feel like I'm talking to a celebrity. I know that probably feels weird to you, but you and I have a common friend with each other, Alan, right?
Yeah.
And and I, kind of pitched this idea to Alan, and he immediately said, "Oh, well, do you know Chris?" And I was, "No, I don't." And he's like, "You should, because you guys, that would be great." And, y'all were having lunch that day? Is that how that came together?
Yeah, gosh, if I remember right,
You happen
yeah,
to be out in LA, right?
that's right, yep.
Yeah.
He said, "Hey, do you
Yeah.
know my friend? Do you know this guy?" I was like, "I don't know that I do." He goes, "You
Yeah.
should, you live right down the street from him."
I know geographically, we're pretty close to each other in all things considered, for sure. So, that's pretty exciting. So, whenever I talk to somebody that I respect, like Alan in the industry, and then they start talking about somebody else that they respect in the industry, then I start going, "Wow, this is a pretty cool moment." So I just want to say thanks for carving out some time for us to have the
Absolutely. It's a
conversation.
small industry and, it's great to have lots of friends all over the place, I'll tell you that, and meet new
Yeah,
ones.
yeah, and at this point now, it's friends nearby. Maybe we'll have to meet up in reality and grab a beer or something. It'd be good.
Ooh, I like that idea.
Yeah, yeah, you've got some good beer where you are, and I've got good beer where I am, so either location would
I
work
think
for
there's
sure.
probably more down your way.
It is the
Wyoming's a
Mecca.
little bit, sparse
Yeah,
when it comes to
yeah.
all things.
Well, I don't know, I've been up there, I've seen a couple of shows, up there,
Mm,
and, you've got that little, pub kind of, right around the corner from the theater, that's got a good selection of brews, so
yeah,
anyways,
yeah.
yeah. Well, cool. So, we're talking wireless transmission systems. I'm going to use that because the microphone is actually, and I've got this here in my hand. The microphone is this, right? So, to say it's a wireless microphone, it's actually a wireless transmission system that's transmitting a microphone, or that go in the other direction if we're going to be talking about personal monitoring. But you're with Shure, and we're going to dive into kind of some of the Shure products and stuff like that. I want to give the audience a little bit of a background, a little bit of a history on me and my journey, my personal journey. Um, we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about y'all's probably one of your largest competitors, Sennheiser. But I feel like it's worth mentioning that have been in the industry for 20 years. Been making recommendations. I've been building systems. I've been running live sound. I'm familiar with a lot of different microphone manufacturers and products and stuff. And the background that I came from was predominantly a Sennheiser background. In fact, that was all of our wireless transmission, wireless microphones. And for the price point, I was really happy with it. I don't have any major negative things to say about them as a manufacturing company. But I experienced an interesting transition. What happened is I left the church and I became a general manager of an event production company. And the event production company that I was at was a Shure house. So all of their microphones were Shure. And so it was kind of my first really big introduction that I had needed to learn the product line. I needed to learn what it was capable of. I needed to learn what it sounded like and stuff. And then I had a unique opportunity to do a lot of A/B testing between Shure microphones and Sennheiser microphones, and just kind of listen to what I felt like the quality of the sound was. And left that company, started Event Tech AV. Event Tech AV, we really focus on event technology. We recommendations for building out casinos or hotels or stadiums or whatever. And I found my progression is I just became more and more convinced that Shure was the best microphone
Mm.
for the customer, best microphone for to make recommendations for people. And it wasn't like I felt like I disliked Sennheiser. It just literally, I one day realized I haven't recommended somebody buy that in 5 years or whatever. So, you guys have become the industry standard. So, I'm going to kind of set that stage. I know that maybe that might feel big, but that's kind of the stage that where I'm approaching it, is that y'all have become the industry standard. And inside of that industry standard, it comes with certain levels of, scrutiny and responsibility. And you guys try to stand up to that as much as you can. So let's just start there. That, what makes you think, sure, how did y'all I don't even know if that's the right question. What makes you think the reason why Shure became kind of the industry standard
Mm,
in professional grade, tour grade microphones?
yeah, that is a great question. And frankly, if we go back a little ways in the time machine, Shure developed a product called UHF,
Hmm.
and that was kind of our first. Like we have arrived as a true wireless microphone manufacturer. Now, granted, the Vagabond is a wireless system. Everyone's going to go Google this now and like, what's the Vagabond? That was a wireless system that we created years and years and years and years ago. It had a radius of maybe about 10 feet. You couldn't really, you had to be within the antenna that laid on the ground. You know, there's all this
Hmm.
stuff. So we've always been in the wireless transmission business. In fact, side note, Mr. Shure started his business by selling radio parts. You had to build your own radios in the
Oh,
20s,
wow.
30s, 40s. You know, you couldn't buy one off the shelf. So that's how he
Mhm.
started in business. But fast forward again, UHF and then UHF-R was really kind of the demarc point in Shure's history where it's like, we have arrived now and have a real competitive product. Sennheiser's a great competitor, by the way. I just wanted to say that they make great products. And if it wasn't for companies like Sennheiser, we wouldn't continue to innovate as quickly as
Mm.
we
There you go. That's a good way to look at it. Yeah.
do. So UHFR, and then there was UHFR Plus. It was like really tour grade worthy metal rack chassis, dual channel receivers, great body pack options with a micro and a smaller standard body pack, handhelds, all that stuff. Now, there was something that happened. Everyone who's lived through wireless for at least, I don't know, the past 4 or 5 years probably know that we've gone through a couple of wireless transitions. The government has sold off some spectrum, and the
That's right.
space that we operate in continues to shrink.
Yeah.
Um, that forced innovation, and, we started, really kind of with our top tier product line, Axient, to try to combat those challenges and issues of a shrinking spectrum.
Mm.
And following on the heels of Axient Analog that we introduced, we started down this line of digital technology with digital microphones. So, to your point, when you say, you know, the microphone itself is not wireless, that's just a transducer that changes acoustic pressure into, you know, electrons, turns it into
Yeah.
electricity, basically, and then that gets into that transmitter and it gets transmitted either the RF side of it, it always stays the same, but the analog, whether it's analog audio that's compressed that has to gets transmitted, or ones and zeros, a word clock, that's the digital side.
Yeah, and I don't think we need to get into the details, but one of the important reasons why I try to help customers understand the difference between a transmission system or a receiving system and a and an actual microphone is because when we recommend microphones to them, then it's going to be, do you want the SM58 capsule? Do you want the Beta 58? The Beta 58A. Like there's all these, and they're like, whoa, their heads are spinning, right? So it's like going to buy a Ford F-150. There's like 400 options, and so you don't know which Ford F-150 you're buying, and that's part of the reason why they really need to consult a professional when they're buying these higher end systems, and that's why guys need to educate themselves. Guys and gals need to educate themselves on all the different pieces. But to just say the microphone itself, I mean, there's a lot of capsules out there, right? And
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah. And so yeah, we started on this digital revolution because demands were such that, well, you know, if you just wanted a wireless to play gig around with your band, you only needed 1 or 2 channels or something, that could be pretty affordable. But, when you start considering, does it need to be installed, or how many channels do you need to have? And, oh, by the way, it has to sound good, right? That digital transition that forced us into smaller spaces with higher quality audio really kind of helped us put Shure at the forefront because we deployed that technology throughout the whole product lineup,
yeah.
starting with SLX-D and going
Mm.
up from there.
Yeah, okay, so, we're gonna kinda draw a line in the sand for our, anybody viewing this. we are going to focus at SLX-D, and we're going to go up. We're in the middle of a SLX-D video. We for our studio, we selected the SLX-D as the wireless system that we picked for our studio, and we're happy with that product. And there's really good case usage of why this is the right system. And then we're, I figured while we had an opportunity to talk to Shure, we'd talk about y'all's products that are, definitely above that. So let's start with the SLX-D. The SLX-D, this product, it's a plastic, body. It's not a metal body. So everything else that we're going to look at is metal, right? The
Yes,
microphone bodies, yeah. So everything else that we're going to talk about would be, but the SLX-D is still in the plastic form.
it is. Yeah.
Okay.
And that is a little bit of a cost savings measure. It's also the battery format's a little bit different,
Yeah.
for a rechargeable anyway. So it was kind of a redesign in that pack that really helped us kind of launch SLX-D with great features at a great price.
Yeah. And the receiver pack, or this is the transmission pack, but it doesn't have as many options. Like I can't get in here and I can't, lock people out of the screen. I can't lock my mute. I can't change it. It's a fairly limited product. But I'm going to tell everybody why I still consider this in the what I'm going to call the pro line of y'all's wireless transmission systems. And it really comes down to the quality is good. You don't have high failure rates with this. I mean, it's not like you're getting a whole bunch of this stuff returned or anything like that. So it's proven itself in the market. But where I really think this thing shines the most in the professional audiovisual industry is that it's a high enough quality, but it still has a gain structure knob on the exterior of the device. And whenever I'm making recommendations for hospitality purposes like hotels, hotel AV, small conference room setups, stuff, a lot of times they have a wall plate on the jack. They've got a touch screen that they can look at the wall plate, and the wall plate says mic 1, 2, whatever. And if you just give them a system that does not have gain structure control in the exterior of the body, it's really difficult for those operators to set that microphone correctly. So then they have to like get a console out, then they got to, and they're really only getting the console just so they can control the gain of the mic. So I have found that that's still professional AV in my opinion. And that's where this product, is kind of, that's where it starts for me.
Yeah.
Um, is it the best product if you've got a whole lot of wireless that you're trying to manage a ton of channels? No, but that's why Shure has other solutions. So let's start with this SLX-D. Um, it has the 4-pin connector, right?
Yeah, it's called a TA4 connector. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I have the ability. This is the microphone that we selected to come with our mic, but I have the ability. I could put pretty much any microphone inside this belt pack, right? I'm
Yeah,
not I'm not
any
limited.
wireless microphone that you were well, when I say wireless microphone, any type of lavalier or headset that we make certainly can interface with it.
Yeah.
But there's other microphone manufacturers as well that build mics that are compatible with Shure transmission systems. And so, if you wanted to use a DPA, for instance,
Yeah,
you could
exactly.
you
Yeah.
could do or Countryman, whatever your favorite ear set, headset, lavalier is, you can interface those as well.
Yeah, in my experience, you're not sacrificing a ton of, fidelity in the SLX-D series, right? It's not like we've changed, we're like, "Oh, man, I can't, get the quality of the DPA that I want," or whatever microphone I'm using. The quality, the fidelity is still there, just the form factors changed. Some of my functions in the pack, it's changed, stuff like
Yeah.
that, right?
Yeah, yeah. In fact, uh, maybe a lot of your users know that when you use a digital system, there's a conversion that has to happen.
Mhm.
And, SLX-D still provides one of the best conversions audio-wise, that's out there. And those codecs is what they're called. They just get better as you go up the line, as you would probably expect. But
Yeah.
certainly for SLX-D, um, whether it's for spoken word or for music, singers, musicians, guitar players, whatever, it still really hits the mark. We do a lot of listening tests. We have We have a place in our, Niles facility that is a recording studio. We bring musicians in to sing and play and listen and do, we do a lot of listening to try to make sure we've got things
Yeah.
tuned just as good as we can.
Yeah. So, this isn't like a super hot topic. It's not something that everybody's researching. They want to learn more about, but it's still a product you guys have been producing. You had the SLX series prior to, and then you talked about this digital transition that has to happen because of where we're at in the industry. So then you transition to the SLX-D, which is the digital version. How long has this been on the market? 7, 8 years?
SLX-D, that's a good question. It's probably at least 5 years. I
Okay.
think that's, pretty close, 4 to 5 years. And for those of you that have experienced SLX, the analog version,
Yeah.
this is a completely different beast, a completely different beast. Things have been redesigned like power switches, rechargeable battery options if you wanna use that. The display screens are really high resolution, they look great, they're easier to see even in direct sunlight. So for those that may have a outdoor gig somewhere, they're easier to see. So, yeah, we're excited about
What
it. Like
what do these units look like on the network?
yeah, so network brings a couple of different options. You can interface with Wireless Workbench, which is
Mhm.
our free tool, the software tool that you can download that helps you to not only coordinate your frequencies if you need to, but what I like about it best is like when you're actually in a show somewhere, when you're going, there's a monitor tab where you get to see live all the situation of your wireless system and like battery life. What does my audio look like? Is it loud enough? Is it too, you know, is it too low? Um, RF quality, how good is the RF? Or excuse me, how
Yeah,
what kind of strength we have? What kind of RF
yeah.
strength we have?
And all of that's available in the SLX-D.
That's right, on
Yeah,
Wireless Workbench. In fact, it's you mentioned earlier too, it if you interface a third-party control system, SLX-D also offers interface with that. So,
that's right.
meaning
Yeah.
like a Crestron or AMX or QSys or whatever kind of thing.
Yeah, which is another extreme common case usage inside of hospitality is what we've found is that that's a really common thing. Okay, great. I want to push pause on the content real quick and give a special shout out to my buddies, Sean and Brandon, and the entire Guitar Center Professional team. Guitar Center Professional, or GC Pro, is a group of salespeople dedicated to helping people just like you, the professional AV industry. So how can GC Pro help you? Well, they're a good group of people all over the nation dedicated to helping people just like you get the best prices on gear. And if you want to get connected to your area GC Pro rep, make sure that you follow the description below and they'll get in touch with you. Now, as I mentioned, Sean, he serves Central Texas. Brandon, he serves Nevada, Utah, Arizona. So maybe you get a chance to talk to one of those two guys. But make sure that you go to the links in the description below, because not only is there information about GC Pro, there's also information about how to buy gear from us. When you buy gear from us, it helps us, and it also allows us to help you with special pricing. So go to the description below. Another special shout out goes to Geer Tech. Geer Tech is a manufacturing rep firm in the professional AV industry, and they've been serving the industry for over 25 years. If you're a manufacturer in the music, sound, broadcasts, or any other piece of the AV industry, you want to be represented by Geer Tech. So reach out to Geer Tech. That's GeerTech.net for more information. Now, back to the content. Cool. Thank you. Great product. We're not saying as we go up the chain, we're not saying anything negative about SLX-D. What we're saying is you guys have a lot more options, and I'm gonna make a little bit of a distinction. I would not take the SLX-D and I would not put it on tour. I would not put it a part of my rental inventory if I knew that my rental inventory was going to get beat up, and that's primarily because of the plastic body. And if I'm taking a product and I'm giving it to somebody that I don't know, that I may not necessarily trust or I haven't built a trust relationship with, and I have no idea how they're going to treat it, I'm going to probably want something that's a little bit more robust. So kind of take us up the chain. I'm going to try to, ask questions if I feel like they're intelligent, but I'm going to give you the floor. You tell me what does it look like? And I actually I literally just had the conversation this past week of a client that they are replacing some illegal of those microphones that you're talking about, and they said, "Hey, what do you recommend?" And for their setting, it's a large church with a lot of wireless microphones. I said, "Hey, you really need to go ULX-D, but if that is not the right step for you, then we can look at the QLX-D." They decided to go ULX-D, but let's start with QLX-D and let's just take a look and see why those
Yeah.
can
Well,
handle more demanding
without getting
environments.
into the weeds too much, I think this is kind of a good slide to look at here. This illustrates a handful of our wireless systems here, including our PSM systems, but we see SLX-D, ULX-D, QLX-D, Axient Digital. We're really going to stay focused basically on SLX-D and above. So really the first place that from a from a technology standpoint where they differ, we've kind of talked about form factor. It's got a plastic body pack, et cetera. But this also is very important to note. Um, this shows frequency bands. So in SLX-D, there's a frequency band here, there's another one here, and there's another one here. We can get a lot of channels on the air with SLX-D, but one of the differences is if I move up, for instance, to ULX-D and QLX-D, which share the same frequency bands, um, I have a broader, wider section of frequencies to choose from, and the receivers, receive a much bigger chunk at the same time. So,
So I'm going to push pause because
yep.
the goal of this channel is to really help AV professionals, build and develop their skills.
Hmm.
And for somebody like you and I that have been in the industry for a long time, we know exactly what this chart means. We know what it looks like. But to a newer person, I want to make sure that what you need to do when you're making recommendations, you need to first understand that every microphone, every wireless transmission system has a group of frequencies of which it operates inside of. And so in this example of SLX-D, the G58 group that can operate between 470 and 514. And when you're making recommendations to clients or when you're making purchases for yourself, you want to make sure that you get like microphones in the same group. Now, I'm going to leave it to you, Chris, to tell them why they want to make sure that they are getting like microphones in the same group. Because I think that that's somewhat counterintuitive to some people. So
Yeah.
I just want to set the stage. Let's take a little bit of a moment to kind of nerd out as to what this means and why this is significant.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great point. So let's just take that example. We call this G58. It really means nothing to anybody else. This is a Shure term, G58. We know that that frequency band belongs to SLX-D. And as you pointed out, it covers 470 to 514 megahertz. Now, if I have a transmitter that is an H55 band, which is 514 to 558, it can't tune down into this band. So think of this. This is similar to like your car radio, right? You have AM, you have FM. You can't tune into two TV stations there, even though it's an RF broadcast. They're working very similarly in how they work. There's different chunks of spectrum, and the receiver in your car can only tune to certain chunks of that spectrum. This is the same thing that we're talking about here. Transmitters and receivers have to be in the same band. And I'll just go ahead and take a moment to say we also get a lot of requests for, hey, I want to buy one receiver, but I want to buy 5 microphones.
Yes.
Well, there's a problem with that.
Yeah.
I'll go back to your radio in your car. When you turn on the radio in your car, you can't hear 5 transmissions at once. You hear one. You hear the one
Yeah.
you're tuned to.
Yeah.
So for every microphone you want to have, you have to have a receiver for it. So again, just to be clear, if you want to have more than one microphone active at a time, you have to have a receiver for that microphone.
And if a professional is advising or servicing an existing system and they want to replace their transmission pack, so you got the receiver that's inside the rack, you got the transmission pack, which is the microphone. If it's a handheld, that's the actual microphone, or if it's a lavalier, that's your pack here. Um, I just want to make sure I'm making this crystal clear to everybody. You have to know what frequency band the receiving end is in before you can make a recommendation for the transmission. Because I've had this happen where we get called in and the client has brand new products and they say, we just can't get it to work. And then I realize, well, they have a G58, receiver, and they've got a G50 or a J52 transmission, and the two, and they get frustrated, they get sad, and and we weren't the ones that made the recommendation. They had a volunteer, the church or whatever, for whatever reason, they end up with two different units, and then they go, well, but we thought they were both SLX-D, they should work together, and they don't. And it's not because you guys are trying to make it confusing. It's because radio transmissions are complicated and they have to be managed in such a way that they work well together. Is that fair enough?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah. I think it's just that's the big thing. Be aware of
Yeah.
this stuff, and the other thing too that you might be asking, well, why do I care if there's G58, H55, J50? What does that matter to me? Well, for instance, if you're in LA, most of these channels are completely useless because we operate by FCC guidelines
That's right.
in the TV band, the television band. So really the only other competitors that we have are television stations, and that changes every city that you're in. It's different. So, if you're just buying these to install in a church or in a hospitality space where it gets installed, well, we know TV stations don't they don't change. They don't fire up in this channel one day and then in a different channel. They're on the air and they stay where
Yeah.
they are. So we can tune around them. But if
Yeah.
you're buying a unit that needs to go on the road, then that's another reason, as you've kind of already pointed out, you might want to look at ULX-D or QLX-D because you have a lot more dance floor to move around in than you
Yeah.
would with SLX-D.
And might is not even really the right word. I mean, if you want to, that's why I call that line the tour quality line, because it really starts moving into trying to prevent the issues that you're talking about. Now, I'll go ahead and tee you up for one last thing. I know that we've gone more into wireless, transmission than what we thought about, but Shure has a way to help us identify what frequencies I ought to be buying, right?
That's a great point here. I'm going to jump back into my web browser and kind of illustrate another topic here. And you're just going to follow along with me because if I go to shure.com and in the search box, I can type software. And I'm gonna. There's all kinds of different applications that we can look for here. There's actually a quicker way even yet to get to it, and you can go to support. That's what I always do. And I go to online and software tools. Wireless frequency finder is the place you want to go. This is great because you can say, hey, I live somewhere in Denver, maybe, and I want to check out SLX-D search. This is a great way to come up and say, hey, in this area, H55, we can get 23 channels. But look at here, G58, back to the original point. What
Yeah.
if I'm trying to expand my church rig from 4 to 8? Do I just automatically go back and buy G58? Probably not. There are too many
Yeah.
TV channels on the air in that G58 range. So H55 would be great. Same thing with J52. It's too crowded.
Yeah.
Um, so that's
All
that
right, so
too. Yeah.
it can be a rabbit hole, and so I just want to make sure that I'm helping our viewers know there are resources for you, and don't just assume you can just go to your local retailer, go online, and just tell them exactly what you want, and then that it's going to work instantly, because it's a complex issue, and that's why you need to be educated in these things. All right, so anyways,
So I thought it might be good too to remind everybody that SLX-D is actually a very utility oriented system, and uh, it's smart to kind of have this as a starting point if you can. This is still an affordable system,
yeah,
but it hosts a lot of features that get you stepped up into kind of like next world configurations, meaning metal receivers that are rack mountable that come with everything in the box that you need. Um, they have rechargeability we talked about already, but we've just added if you're interested in like a plug-on transmitter, maybe you're doing some interview style stuff, and maybe you have your favorite wired mic. This is popular for, like ENG or on-air camera type of
Yeah.
interview kind of thing. You can put them on a boom pole, of course, or we see them matched up with shotgun microphones for film and video use. And
Mhm.
then also, if you are using a camera, like a mirrorless camera or a DSLR, we do have a receiver, this
Yeah.
portable receiver. So again, to be clear, these are rack mount receivers. We packed all that stuff up into this small little package, which is right here, that can be run off a battery. And then this interfaces with your DSLR or your mirrorless camera.
Is that 1/8 inch? Is that what, or 3.5 mil?
Yes,
Yeah.
3.5. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
And it comes with different mounting options that can, mount onto the camera, like a cold shoe style mount, that type of stuff.
Yeah. Very
And then
cool.
you had mentioned QLX-D. This is really the step up from SLX-D.
Yeah.
You step up, you get into metal transmitters. So get away from the plastic transmitters. The rack mount unit is still also all metal. Notice that it's, an OLED type screen, high resolution, so it looks good inside, outside. Also at all angles. So like if you have your rack sitting off to the side somewhere, it's kind of hard
Mhm.
to see some of these screens sometimes. You have to be right on axis. Not with this one. It actually looks great. Optionally, you can add rechargeability. It's funny, there used to be a day not that long ago that we, even at Shure, said, "Don't ever use rechargeable batteries."
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
there was
I
this little
remember that.
company yeah, a little company called Tesla came along, and lithium ion type cells became a very viable thing,
Yeah.
and
I
now
I do wanna I'm gonna once again throw it out there. Still don't use cheap rechargeable
well, that's
batteries.
right. No, no,
If you're a professional, don't use cheap rechargeable batteries. Now, if you're using a Shure battery, then you know that it's gone through the quality testing. And real quick, the main reason is that cheap rechargeable batteries appear to have a full charge, and then their discharge shelf is a drop off. It's not a like linear line going down. Like an alkaline battery has very similar properties across the entire discharge line. That's not the way cheap rechargeable batteries work. Cheap
that
rechargeable batteries, it's working. Then you're in between shows. It has 3 bars. You're like, oh, I'm great. And then it dies 6 minutes into this, the third show or whatever. And you're like, I thought it was fine. That's because it does not show you an actual life decharge, right? I mean,
that's
that's
exactly right.
yeah.
Yeah, it shelved, and then the other problem too is with transmitters. They actually, even with like alkaline batteries, you
Hmm.
probably all know this. You'll it'll say, "Oh, your alkaline battery's on low. It's on its last bar or whatever." And you take it out and you put it in your tester, and it's still got like 70% of life left. That's true. It's because we need all the juice at the front end of that stuff
Yeah.
to really get it working. And when you use those, and some of them aren't even so cheap anymore. They actually have some decent double A looking style cells, but they still have the discharge issue. We need something that is more linear, that gives
Yeah.
over time. And so our rechargeable batteries across the board, our benchmark is to hit 8 hours. If we can hit eight
Yeah.
hours or better, that's where we want to sit.
Yeah, which still means you need one set for load in and sound check and a different set for show, just for professionals out there. All right.
Yeah.
So in the QLX-D, now we've moved into a metal body. We've also underneath that battery cap that's right there, now
Hmm.
got a little bit of functionality, right? As a professional, there's a couple extra buttons. I can do some things in my mic and kind of control more than I can in the SLX-D series, right?
That's right. Yep. You can pull the battery cap off on both the handheld and on the body pack. There's menus that you can surf around there. Do quick things like, whether it's changing frequencies if you need to. I always feel like the best way to change frequencies is to do it on the receiver, or better yet, through Workbench. Deploy that
Yeah.
because you're going to hopefully get a good clean set of frequencies. Deploy that to the receiver and then do the IR sync,
Yeah.
which is also a feature of SLX-D. From this point up, all this has IR sync, and your transmitter just goes to the right channel. You can lock it out. You can make the power button be a mute button instead of an actual power off,
Yeah.
because I love that feature where, maybe the talent, you want to leave the transmitter turned on so that somebody else maybe doesn't accidentally do a sweep and say, "Hey, this is clean frequencies. I'm going to tune into that channel." No, you can leave the transmitter on the whole time, see that information back on that monitor page in Wireless Workbench or even on the front of the receiver.
Yeah.
And then now the talent still has a way they think they're turning it on and off when really all they're doing is muting and unmuting.
And if I know that my next cue is mic 7, 99% of the time, I look at the physical unit. So right there, we're talking about the receiver. I look at it to make sure that that microphone is on and it's ready to go. So if that button is a mute button, they can never turn it off, and I'm always have this kind of level of confidence that that microphone is on, and they still have, they could still not unmute themselves, but that is not my problem.
Yeah, yeah,
If the cue is coming up and I look and I don't see that the microphone itself is on, then I'm always trying to figure out how do I get in, I need to talk to backstage. I need to get them to swap out the batteries. We have some sort of problem with it, whatever. And they're like, oh no, they just turned it off. I'm like, why?
yeah.
So that's a great feature, right? Now that we've moved up to be able to change that button into a mute button.
Another thing you might notice that the antennas are much longer on this
Yeah.
system. These are actually half wave antennas. We won't geek out on what half wave means, but it is half the length of the wavelength of the RF carrier, basically.
Mhm.
These can be taken off the unit and with the right type of cable can be put out in the space to get better, better line of sight. Remember, RF is part of the light spectrum,
Yeah.
and we accidentally get away with stuff that we shouldn't be able to. Those antennas really should be line of sight to the transmitters for best practices for RF performance. I know they get they're sh I can't tell you how many times they're shoved down on the bottom of a rack somewhere and they're not hooked up quite right, and somehow the wireless system is still working. But it's important to point out again that the half waves you can remote mount out. The SLX-D comes with quarter wave antennas. And while they are detachable, you would want to use a different type of
That's
antenna.
right.
You could use the
Do
half
not
waves.
Do not use those.
Yeah,
He's trying to say it nicer,
yeah,
but if you're in the middle and you're at a church and you're like, "Oh, I gotta get my wireless signal closer to stage," don't run a wire and then and throw one of these guys on the end of it. It's
right.
not gonna work.
You'd be better off running a mic cable and setting your receiver up on the stage.
That's right.
Uh,
So I'm going to apologize. I'm loving this conversation, but I just glanced at our clock and we're running low. So I'm going to
Great.
once again stop trying to talk as much and
I'll wrap it
maybe,
up.
yeah, sounds great.
Got it. Okay. So moving up from QLX-D, again, just improving on different um, options that are available, basically moving up to ULX-D. Most people you move up to ULX-D mainly because we can have more density inside of one rack unit. So for instance, this bottom unit we're looking at here is the ULX-D Quad 4-channel receives all in one rack. We have a dual receiver, and we do have a single receiver. Also, look at all these different types of transmitters. You mentioned hospitality and stuff. I can't tell you how many times there's a talking heads table that needs some wireless goosenecks. These systems are compatible with ULX-D. By the way, if you want to cheat, they're also compatible with QLX-D. You have to change the mode in which they operate, but they can be made to operate with ULX-D or QLX-D. And these are boundary mics back here. Boundary mics literally sit on a table. They use the table as a boundary. My opinion is, frankly, they sound the best. The problem is paper shuffling and key clicking and everything
Yeah.
else that goes on the table is right by the microphone, and that degrades the audio quality. So,
Yeah.
anyway, also, rechargeability is built in here with ULX-D. The biggest difference with ULX-D is this network port right here. ULX-D on duals and quads offer Dante as well. So everything we've looked at, you can control and monitor over a network, but starting at ULX-D is the only one that we have the option now to have digital audio out. And this is popular for a lot of different mixing consoles, whether it's like an Allen Heath or a Yamaha. A lot of the consoles have actually put controls into their console that talk directly to the ULX-D. Not only is the audio digital over a network coming in, but they also can see battery life and they can see RF levels, all that kind of stuff. So this really starts to set things apart, again, for a higher level of interface and integration to whatever it is your system is.
Yeah, in one of the areas that we've recommended this product a lot is in like large. I'm going to use the word conference room, but it's not really a conference room. It's like a miniature event space slash large conference room. There's a lot of application for those boundary mics, for the gooseneck podium mics and stuff like that for these kind of mega conference rooms that pop up in hospitality a lot.
So back to the density thing. This is a really popular thing as well. Now, this we're looking at the back of the quad, meaning 4 channels of receives in one rack space. The other thing that we allow you to do is cascade your antennas to one more unit. So that means in just 2 rack spaces, I could have 8 channels of receive with ULX-D. We don't recommend you go over. I know the idea is that, hey, we could just keep cascading. I'll just keep buying more and more wireless systems. And trust me, I would all of us would love that if you just keep buying more. But um, there is a technical reason why we only recommend just one cascade, and that's it. So keep that in mind. And then, frankly, moving up from there, you're on to our premier wireless system, Axient Digital. The thing I love about Axient Digital is that it's kinda like building blocks. It's, you can buy in at the base level, which is just the most solid RF, wireless system that's available, which is, again, a quad or a dual receiver, and then we have what we call AD, series transmitters. So this is a step up in that audio codec that I talked about. So this is our most premier sounding
Mm.
wireless system, and from an RF standpoint, it's your most, um, rock solid RF performance that you can get. Now, you say, "Wait, what's all this other stuff here?" Well, the next step that you can do, should you want to, is let's say you wanna actually be able to remotely control your transmitters. This is the system that allows you to remotely control your transmitters, and that's what we see on the right-hand side here. These are ADX series transmitters. So I wanna buy those. This little guy up here is what we call our show link control. This is a wireless communications link to your transmitters. It has no audio, doesn't carry any audio. All it does is when I'm in wireless workbench, or maybe even from the front of the receiver, I can see these transmitters and I can make changes on them. So that's really cool to be able to do that. But what's even
And
better,
if the physical mute has been muted, you can unmute, right?
you can
Yeah,
absolutely unmute it. You can
yeah,
shut the transmitters down, but
right.
you can't turn them back on, not remotely.
Yeah, but that's the whole, your talent has gotten on stage. They're acting like, they're innocent and that your microphone doesn't work and you can just quickly check it and you see that physical mute is on. You can just unmute it right there from your console or you can handle it for them. So anyways,
That's right.
yeah.
But what the other thing that's kind of part of the whole system that's really cool too is that now that I have remote control of those transmitters, I could add a spectrum manager, and that's this guy sitting here. And we have this
Mhm.
picture's a little bit old. I'm surprised it's still up there, but we have a new spectrum manager. The spectrum manager, all it does is it's constantly monitoring your RF environment, and it can deploy a new good clean frequency simultaneously to a receiver and to a transmitter. If again, we have to have that remote controllability, but it will move all that stuff immediately to a new good clean frequency and kind of save the show. Those things, the big
Perfect example is you're at a festival, you're on the main stage or you're on a side stage, another stage fires up and all of a sudden they just squash all your frequencies and you're trying to figure out what the heck happened. Now, obviously, if you have good coordination, that's not supposed to happen. But let's just assume that, so
it's
get
the
you out of
money
the hot
mic.
water.
Yeah, it's absolutely it's the money
Right.
mic. It's, somebody goes to sing the national anthem on a big broadcast, national
Yeah.
television
Right.
televised thing. And I've been in the broadcast booths, and I've seen those wireless systems take hits, and move and heal themselves, and you never hear it.
Yeah.
There's another yet building block with transmitters. There is a version called an FD for frequency diversity, meaning, like, for instance, the handheld actually transmits on 2 completely different frequencies, and it
Hmm.
takes up 2 different receive channels on your receiver. But again, if one channel takes a hit, it can resolve itself while the other one continues on. So again, it's this building block. You can start small. You can have the system you can build on as you wish, for whatever you can have a bunch of the AD series transmitters, maybe for the back line if you're on tour, and then your main act, your main talent could have that frequency diversity system that's remotely controlled. So
Yeah, so we rushed through the end of that, but if people want to know more about some things that we did not cover, do y'all have some resources online that not just your website, that you've got some stuff on YouTube, is that right?
that's right. We have a great YouTube channel. This other document that I was showing with the frequency bands is available to download from online. That's actually a wireless guide. So not to just direct you back to the website again, but there are lots of great uh, webinars. We actually have an audio institute, the Shure Audio Institute, that you can go and learn about RF on if you want. It's open to anybody. So lots of different opportunity to learn more.
All right. Well, I want to express a thanks one more time, not just on my behalf. I'm excited that I got an opportunity to talk to you, but also for just bringing the content so that everybody else gets to enjoy it. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. I enjoyed it.